the reason I stress so hard that personality and brand personalities need to be flexible is because we don't have one why. There's not one reason why people are buying.
Well, hello, and welcome to another edition of the eCommerce Evolution Podcast. I'm your host, Brett Curry, CEO of OMG Commerce. And today I am absolutely thrilled to welcome to the show Nate Lagos. We are talking all things better creative, better storytelling, better copywriting, knowing your customers better, better branding and positioning. How does that fit into performance marketing? This guy is an absolute legend. We met when he was serving as head of growth at Original Grain, saw them through tremendous amounts of growth. Now he's a CMO of Adapt Naturals. We're working together and loving it. And so he's also the host of the Tactical and Practical Marketing Podcast. Check it out. One of my favorite follows on X. So with that, Nate Lagos. What's up, Nate? Welcome to the show. And how's it going, man?
Brett, thanks so much for having me. Man, it's going good. The year's off to a busy but hot start. I'm excited to get into what we've been working on.
Totally. And then this is for the supplement and health space. This is go time for you. And I know you really hit the ground running when you joined Adapt. And so excited to see how that's progressing.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, man, want to get practical here, just like your podcast. But before we do, I think it'd be really interesting to set the stage. So we met when you were head of growth at Original Grain. Feel free to talk about any of the experiences there because that was just tremendous growth. But then we really got to know each other. We both spoke at the same event in New York City, D2C Growth Summit. Shout out to our buddy Johnny Hickey. What's up? And we both spoke there, got to know each other a little bit. You walked on stage before me and you were wearing a cowboy hat, great look, and aviators. This is a choice. and you're like, hey guys, I'm using notes here. I'm wearing aviators because I got bucked off a bull and I have a concussion. We're like, what? First of all, that's the coolest intro ever. I've thought about just doing that, even though it wouldn't be true, just to see what kind of reaction I would get. But tell us about that. So you ride bulls in your spare time, and how did you perform such a good talk while concussed?
Yeah,
and do you have a concussion right now?
No, I'm not concussed now. I can tell you these ribs still hurt from that injury, but the brain has bounced back. We're good there. No, but the reason that all came together was because I wrote the presentation before I went bull riding. So the notes were good. The deck was good. Everything was locked in. Sunday, I was like, let me buck some bulls. First one bucked me off, stepped on me, broke 3 ribs. But I was like, I can do better. Let me get one more in quick. Landed directly on my head, concussed pretty bad. So that was Sunday, and then hopped on a plane Tuesday for that conference.
It's crazy, man. It's crazy. Yeah. You really did. Kudos to you. You really couldn't tell. It was great. And you broke down, storytelling and what you did at Original Grain, which we got to observe that, know the founders, love that brand. Just tremendous growth there. But let's dive into that a little bit. Let's talk about copy and storytelling. I want to talk brand. I want to talk knowing your customers and a few other things. But how do you approach storytelling and in copywriting in general? Because you're more gifted than most at that. So I would love to just know what is your approach?
Yeah, copy was something I slept on early in my career. I became a CMO at 24 of a company called Dugout Mugs, made baseball themed barware. I didn't do any copywriting there. I was writing copy. It was not thoughtful. None of it was good. But we had a super unique product. We tested offers a bunch, saw good growth there. But it wasn't really until I got to Original Grain that I felt the need and got into storytelling as a performance lever. When you look at a watch made out of wood, there's a bunch of different ways you can sell it. When I tried selling it as a watch made out of wood, didn't go over that well. I can't.
Would you like a watch made out of wood?
Yeah, I can't tell someone like, hey, do you know wood? Do you know the thing that's like the most renewable and cheapest resource on earth? Yeah, we put it in a watch and we're going to sell it to you for $300. Everyone's like, no.
No thanks.
But when we started to get into the stories behind the materials our watches were made from, and I started to tell you that this isn't just wood. This was a tree that was planted likely in the late 1800s and grew for 70 years. And then it was chopped down, harvested. It was turned into a whiskey barrel where a master distiller filled it, and it aged the whiskey for another decade. And then we got it and cut it and planed it and sanded it and inlaid it into your watch. So now you can carry a piece of American and whiskey history on your wrist. Then you're going to buy that for $300. So
that and maybe feel like you're getting a steal at that 100%. Price. Yeah.
And that really kind of opened my eyes to the power of words. And I have not slowed down on it. Copy and message testing was like the first thing I did at Adapt. I still joke with the team internally that CMO stands for Chief Messaging Officer, because that's what I try to spend the most time on. But it's been crazy powerful. The performance gains we've had from it haven't stopped yet.
Yeah, I love it, man. And you know, I like studying some of the classics and some of the greats in marketing. I just reread Ogilvy on Advertising, which is a classic. Kind of skimmed through again My Life in Advertising and Scientific Advertising by Caples, I believe it was. And then one of those guys, I can't remember which one, but talked about advertising for Schlitz beer and how they really grew market share for that beer company by talking about the artisan wells and the way they treated the bottles and like the way they went through the brewing process. And turns out it was actually the way that everybody did it, but they just told the story better for that time. Like it fit that time. I know it might not fit now. Now we just need to show, sports or girls or whatever to sell beer, but it worked at that time. Like it was a brilliantly told story, even though anybody could have told it, and it sold a lot of beer. Right. And so it's like taking some of those classic timeless things. Humans have been telling stories forever, but channeling that for good marketing. So how did you walk through some of the ways you approached it from Original Grain? Was it just understanding the story? Was it understanding the customer first? Was it a lot of trial and error to see, okay, this angle works, that angle falls flat? Probably a little bit of all of that.
Yeah, it started early on there. I was not a watch guy. I walked into that brand never having owned a watch, never wanting to get into that world. Yeah. But it sucked me in, and it's grabbed me now. But early on, I was asking simple questions about the industry, like why do watches exist? Why does someone buy a watch today? And I quickly found out the answer was not so they know what time it is.
Right.
That is
got a phone for that.
That is reason 99 out of 100 why someone could buy a watch. But I started to learn from industry research, from some customer surveys, that the men who are buying the watches for themselves are buying it as a status symbol. They want to be respected by their tribe. And if you're in a conference like we are, status in that room is a Rolex. But if you're a blue collar guy who's known as the whiskey guy in his group, status in that group is not a Rolex. It's an Original Grain watch inlaid with whiskey barrel wood. So that was really eye-opening. And then we discovered,
when I buy this product, what does it say about me? And what does it say about me to the people I want to impress?
100%.
With the people I'm around. Yeah, 100%. It's super interesting. Yeah.
And then I quickly found out that over half our customers were women. And we only sold men's watches. And I was like, what is going on? And the reason that they were buying for the men in their lives was most commonly was the wife of that blue collar hardworking guy. And she very visibly sees all he does to sacrifice for the family. She knows he gets up early, works late, works hard, and has sacrificed a lot to provide for his family. And these women, we found, didn't have a way to reciprocate that. They didn't have a way to show him that they appreciate and value and are so grateful for everything he does for them. So our messaging changed drastically around gift giving times where we didn't start saying, like, hey, if your husband likes whiskey, get him this watch. These wives don't like how much their husband drinks already. They're not trying to reinforce that behavior. But when we changed the message to say, show your
Which
man,
does feel like that would be an angle you should test, right? Like
100%.
These are men that love whiskey. I know you're a whiskey fan. I love it too, although it doesn't agree with me, so I almost never drink it, but it's great. So you think, oh, that's a good angle, but actually it turns out that's not the reason they buy. And so you got to dig deeper, which is what you found out. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we changed the messaging from like, hey, whiskey guys love this, it's a great gift for them, we changed it to show your man he's worth every second with a gift as rugged and dependable as he is. Conversion rate went crazy. AOV went up. And then we were actually able to raise our prices without seeing a decrease in conversion rate because we weren't just selling a watch anymore. We were selling a token, a physical expression of love and appreciation, which people are willing to spend more money on than a piece of metal and wood.
Yeah, it's so good, man. And it's like now you've flipped it where it's not what is this watch worth? It's what is my man worth to me, and how much am I willing to show him? I remember my dad got a motorcycle when I was in high school. He'd ridden when he was younger, but he got a new motorcycle. And I happened to be with him and my stepmom. They were buying a helmet, and the salesman was so brilliant. The salesman was like, we got these helmets and these helmets. And so like you look at it and you're like, well, I'm comparing plastic, right? Is this plastic better than that plastic? And so he starts showing like, well, this is like the $700 helmet and this is the $200 helmet. And my stepmom was like, well, what's the difference? And so he told us, and he's like, I guess it just depends on what you think your head is worth.
Yeah.
and then he stopped. And what's hilarious, because money really wasn't like an issue, but it is until you know. So they bought the expensive one. So it's like, yeah, that's a good point. My head's probably pretty valuable. So yeah,
100%.
Like, what are you putting the value on, and what is someone really buying? Because that can shift the whole game.
Yeah. Sure. And I have seen very little evidence that that customers are price sensitive. I think they're value sensitive.
Yes.
And everyone gets that wrong. That's why everyone just results into discounting a ton. But we found such big gains at just being better at communicating the value of the product with written and visual content.
Yeah. Yeah. What is your take? Because what's interesting, the reason I wanted to do this episode, well, a few reasons. One, you're fascinating guy to talk to, so I was interested in that. But I listened to a ton of podcasts in our space, listened to all the big ones for D2C. Almost everybody's talking about creative volume and creative velocity and creative diversity, all of which I believe are important. Those function differently for Meta versus YouTube versus other channels. But what I hear less people talking about is just understanding, what are we saying? And like, how are we approaching storytelling? And how are we positioning this product? And so how do you think, looking at just good copy and your approach to good copy, how does that impact, or how does that translate into diversity, volume, velocity?
Yeah. I am not a believer in creative volume to unlock scale on Meta. We actually just ran a test the last few weeks. We cut the amount of creative we launched on Meta in half. In that time, we were able to increase spend by 25% while improving our AIMR. So I find more success being more accurate and aiming for quality over everything. I don't really believe in the concept of ad fatigue. Coke has been running the polar bears for 40 years. Kit Kat has that song stuck in my head since I was 8. I think great ads resonate with
Geico's
people.
Always been saving us 15% or more on car insurance.
Always. When you have messages and symbols and content that work, I think the way to build a profitable advertising program and a brand that people like and remember and gravitate towards takes repetition. So I like to hone in on messages that can do both, that can increase sales today, but also start to build positive affinity between how people see you and the experience they have once they get your products. So with that said, I don't want to launch 100 ads this week. I want to launch 7 that do a really good job at communicating our value, that do a really good job of hitting the right customers when they are ready to buy, and running different versions of that over and over and over throughout the year. And in doing that, I've seen multiple individual ads that can spend 7 figures a year without ever fatiguing. And I've seen us be able to build efficient in-house creative teams where the goal is not 100 ads a week. The goal is how many great ads can we make?
Yeah.
And if we can make 12 great ones, awesome. If we can make 30, cool. But if we can only make 4, I'd rather 4 excellent ads that speak to the right people at the right moment in their lives in order to get them to buy.
Yeah. And I think, creative velocity and diversity means different things to different brands at different levels of scale, right? But I think there's also some element of, I love the Oracle of Omaha, his quote that diversity is only important if you don't know what you're doing, right? Which it doesn't fully translate here, but it sort of does, right? Maybe the reason you need so much velocity or so much volume is because a lot of what you're putting out there sucks, right?
Yeah.
Like get better, and then you can probably cut that volume down and find some real wins. And I think that begins with good storytelling. And so that's phenomenal. So can you talk a little bit about how do you understand what a customer is actually buying or what they want? And would love to hear how you're maybe doing that at Adapt Naturals. Is that survey based? Is that just we're testing ads and angles and seeing what the results are? How are you honing in on this is what someone is actually buying?
A little bit of everything, a little bit of surveys and research, a little bit of testing new messages and seeing how they respond. The most impactful thing I've done is hire Sarah Levinger, who's a customer research. I don't know, researcher, analyst, but she's awesome. And she really opened my eyes a couple years ago to understand the real reasons why people were buying. And to be honest, it made me uncomfortable because it exposed some stuff in my purchasing behavior that I didn't really want to know. I got Chick-fil-A delivered to the house today because I'm stressed and needed a little quick, convenient comfort.
It's comfort food, dude. Chick-fil-A it's comfort food, but you can still function afterwards. Like I eat a Chick-fil-A sandwich.
Yeah.
It's not health food, but I still feel okay enough, So
yeah, it's better than Taco Bell, which is what I really wanted.
Exactly. Yeah.
My last cowboy hat, I bought because I was insecure and felt like I deserved something that I hadn't gotten yet. And that sucks when you look at that for yourself and you can stop yourself from making some bad purchases.
You want to be like, no, that's why other people buy. I buy just value,
I bought a new watch as soon as I left OG because I'm insecure and wanted to feel better. But uncovering the real reasons why people were purchasing allow us to create ads that speak to what they really feel, not just what they say they want.
Yes.
Because when we ask customers directly, they will tell you the reason they bought after they've justified it and rationalized it to themselves. No one walks into the Rolex store and says, "Hey, I'm deeply insecure. I would like the people in my circle to know that I am financially successful. Do you have anything for me?"
Yeah. I've got a significance issue. I want other people to respect me. That's why I'm buying this. Yeah.
So that's why you have to do a mix of surveying. We scrape Reddit for insights. We run all of our customer reviews through a series of prompts to figure out what they're actually feeling, not just what they're saying. And then the last part of it that I think everyone misses is when you're testing copy and messaging, that's a two-way conversation. The customers just don't talk back. They either buy things or they don't. And one of the big examples for this is at Original Grain, we started to talk about, guys who were building their legacy, guys who were carving their own path. No one in their right mind would open up a conversation with, "Hey, I'm Nate and I really care about my legacy." Or "I bought this watch because I care about my legacy." No one's talking like that. But when we put out messaging that spoke to that and we saw conversion rate of our male buyers go crazy, we thought, oh, they care about that. They might not know it. They might not admit it. But talking about that is going to make them purchase more.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good, man. I worked with a pretty large jewelry store for a long time early on in my career, did all their marketing for over a decade. And when I first started, I wasn't a fan of jewelry. I just thought it was a waste of money and kind of silly. So I'm surprised I got the gig. But as I got in, I started understanding like, one, when people wear jewelry, they feel better about themselves, right? And so like my wife, when she wears jewelry, I'm sure she feels better about herself. Also, I started to understand that for me as a guy, I feel better about myself when I buy my wife nice jewelry, right?
100%.
It's like I want people to not only see how beautiful she is, but maybe to know that I'm successful. Like I started to understand, maybe that's why I'm like motivated to buy this. Is super, super interesting. But then also you start to look at some of the reasons, and I heard some of these people talk about it, like, hey, I'm buying this for my daughter because she'll get to keep it and pass it down to future generations. So I think that's true. Like that's the logical piece. But then it's also probably that, but I want to look successful too, right? Yeah. Like in process. So really interesting. And then I, like you, related to why I became a jewelry fan. So I buy jewelry pretty frequently, buy it for my daughters and stuff like that too as well.
I bought a nice car when I was 26. And I told myself beforehand, I was like, hey, I'm not going to post this on Instagram. I'm not going to put it on Twitter. Like this is not a flex. I'm buying it because I want it.
Right.
But that doesn't stop me from feeling good about myself when I go meet people in town and I step out of that.
Totally.
And it's like, all right, it's still kind of a flex. I was trying not to be a huge D-bag about it, but like a little bit still, you know?
Yeah.
And then I brought it up on a podcast. So I
so funny. But then you start to understand, okay, so this is maybe what's at the root of it. This is maybe the reason that people are willing to talk about why they buy. So let me appeal to both. Let me appeal to all of that in my ads and from different angles and things like that. And so, awesome. Let's talk a little bit about brand. And I'm a huge believer. You said this earlier, where you like to run ads that get results now, but they also build someone's brand. I've always been a huge fan of that. Some people call it brandformance, right? Where it's like I'm telling stories, I'm moving people to take action. I'm getting a direct response and likely a decent ROI now, but I'm also building a brand into the future. How do you view brand? Because I heard one of your podcasts recently where you talk about, hey, this is maybe a way to think about brand. So talk about that. Talk about that maybe from a performance lens, but what's your reframe of branding? Hey, thanks again for tuning in to the eCommerce Evolution podcast. I want to take just a minute and talk about my agency, OMG Commerce. We've been helping e-commerce brands for 15 years, and that's like 100 e-commerce years. And our specialty is finding opportunities for growth that other people miss and unlocking channels that you're not currently maximizing. For example, YouTube. Most brands are sleeping on YouTube, and my belief is it's the biggest untapped opportunity for your brand. We're also good at adding up to 8 figures in growth for Amazon brands. And so if you're looking for scale and growth profitably, that's what we do. We'd love to chat with you. We'd love to review your current marketing efforts, show you where there's missed opportunities, and craft a specific plan for you. So visit us at omgcommerce.com, click the Let's Talk button, and we'd love to schedule a complimentary strategic review with you. With that, back to the show.
Yeah, I think the word brand throws our performance marketer brains into a tizzy that we cannot escape from. Like,
you want me to waste money?
Yes,
why do you want me to waste money?
Everyone jumps like, okay, so I should just go blow some money? And it's like, no.
I'm not Coca-Cola.
Yeah. I try to reframe it to everyone on my team that we are not building a brand. We're like showing our personality. And once you make it your personality, I think it's a lot easier to draw connections between who our customers are and who we should be.
Yeah.
I also like the word personality because we all know our personalities can be flexible. Mm-hmm. This is how I show up to an e-commerce marketing podcast. But on Friday night, when I have some guys over for a fire, I'm going to talk much differently than I'm talking now. I'm not going to talk about what copy tests I ran that week. And the next day, when I'm at lunch with my in-laws, who I am there, it's just a little bit different version of me than who I am at work. I'm not being fake, I'm not being artificial, but personality allows you to show up in the right context in the right way. And that's what I think brands need to be able to do in 2026 and beyond, is show up in a way that our customers care about and respect and like, in the right context. Because the way that you behave on TikTok and on YouTube and on Instagram should be different than the way your products arrive, and should be different than how your customer service team operates. So I like personality because you can start to ask yourself questions like, hey, if our brand had Friday night plans, what would they be? Would it be out drinking, dancing, partying? Would it be at home with the family? Is it getting a head start on chores for the weekend? And then how different is Friday from Saturday? And how do they feel on Monday mornings? That's what I think you need to do to build like a fully flushed out brand playbook, is understand how your brand is going to show up in different ways to different people, but at the right time.
Dude, it's so good. And I think the other thing we think about when we think about branding is colors and fonts and logos. And certainly those are important, and there's all kinds of psychological stuff that goes into that. But I love the personality angle. Yeah. What does my brand do on a Friday night, right, for fun? What about on a Saturday morning or Monday? And so I like that reframe for sure. How then have you seen, so when you view it that way, how does that shift the way you approach copy? How have you seen that shift the way your team writes copy? What's the practical impact of that?
First, we find out all those answers from our customers. We ask them, what are you doing on a Friday? What kind of music are you listening to? What kind of sports are you watching? Once we start to get those answers, we start to see, and it becomes clear, where we need to show up. At OG, all of our fans were NFL and country music fans. So we were like, immediately, let's go get some country artists to partner with us. We worked with some NFL teams, but that was hard. But we immediately knew, like, okay, those are the places we need to show up. Then once you know what the places are, you start to understand how you need to appear, how you need to talk, dress, act. So that's what starts our copy and messaging kind of brainstorming from there. It's like, all right, if our brand is going to show up to a country concert, are we going to be the guy front row screaming? Are we going to be at the back at the bar buying our friends shots? Who are we there? Who do our customers want us to be there? How can we show up as our customers, essentially like best wingman at the events that they want to be at? So that's where it all starts. And we try to view everything from that lens. Like, would our customers invite us as one of their best friends out to enjoy their favorite activities with them?
Yeah. Yeah. It's so good. And then over time, you're going to see, okay, how does that flavor or shift our copy and our emails from our automated flows to our monthly promotions or weekly promotions? How does that impact the meta ads or the YouTube scripts? Like, it can start to influence all of those. And you're 100% right. Like, there's a different way to approach each of those channels, but that personality can be the anchor or the core of what you're doing, and then just applying it in the different space there, which I think is awesome.
One example I want to pull up that I hope will bring this into kind of like concrete terms for everyone. We did an event with OG where we gave away a bunch of guitars to veterans, and we put them through a music therapy program to cope with PTSD and everything. Yeah, the guys at OG do awesome charitable work. But we threw this event just outside of Nashville, and it was fun. It was a party. It was happy. It got emotional for a minute, but overall fun, happy event. We invited our Tennessee customers to come out, and we had 100 or so of them show up. And having a night where I could just kind of talk and hang with customers was so eye-opening. And the example that really stands out to me is there's a customer of ours who showed up to this event on a Friday night in ripped jeans and dusty boots. And I was like, man, that says way more about who our customer is. And it would never show up on a post-purchase survey. Right. It would never show up in a review. But just understanding that, it's going to change our tone a little bit. We're going to say y'all when we talk instead of saying you all
Yep.
or you guys.
Yep.
It can change subtle things, but those subtle things, I think, are what makes the difference between a corporate, boring brand and a brand that resonates with the people they're trying to hit.
Yeah, it's so good, man. I think I love this quote. I think this was founder of Airbnb talked about, like, to scale, sometimes you have to do things that don't, right? Which getting in front of your customers, you can't necessarily do that at scale. You certainly can't see all of your customers face to face. But I do, however, think like you could duplicate those events. Like you could do multiple of those events per year. I think it'd be extremely valuable. I'm sure if you were to go back and look at those people that attended, they've probably purchased more than your average cohort. They probably referred more than your average cohort. That was probably like a time well spent. But then on top of that, there's something about seeing a room of your customers that will completely change your perspective. And it's way easier to think about, I'm writing this ad for dude in the dusty boots versus I'm writing this ad for a male who's 25 to 54 and lives in the South. And that's not even all that helpful. Like I want to write for a person, and now I've got this person in my head.
Yeah. And I think this little extra thing here for you. I think in real life events are like necessary to build great brands from now on. I think in the age of AI, people are going to be craving connection and authenticity and something tangible and real more than anything. I think events are such a great way to do that. And you're right. I think those events are going to increase the LTV of any customer that shows up. So we'll probably at least break even on it.
Yes.
But at the very least, you'll get to know your customers on such a deeper level. So I'm really excited for that. We've got some stuff planned at Adapt that I think is going to be great. But I think like when in doubt, if you're ever having writer's block, creator's block for what to say to your customers, try to get in a room with them. And I promise the ideas will start flowing.
It's awesome, man. And then I think then you leverage the event, and I think that's what you guys are doing as well, where you invite out some VIPs, you could shoot some interviews, you could get some
content,
footage and pictures of this and like leverage that. But that's one of the things I used to do actually formerly when I was doing some TV stuff. This was like early days of OMG and before. We would do customer interviews, and I got to where I was like a pro at interviewing people. And like, there's something magical that happens when you're asking a customer the right questions and they're on camera, but you get them like to not think about the fact they're on camera for a little while. They'll say some amazing things. And then like you chop those clips up, and now you've got, pieces of marketing gold that you can use in your Meta and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, ads for a long time. So
100%.
Do in-person events. If you take nothing else away from this podcast, do it. I think it'll pay off in spades. Awesome. What are some of the, as you can, because I know you do a lot of testing, a lot of, this angle versus that angle. Can you think of some tests that surprised you? So this one, and I did not see it coming, or this was a surprise outlier of an ad. Any examples come to mind?
Yeah, dozens. I'm right more often than I'm wrong, but it's not as often as I'd like. I think the biggest examples that I'm ready to share, at least, are sometimes just flipping the perspective of a headline from positive to negative or negative to positive can be such a huge difference. If you're not familiar with valence and intensity zones, ask ChatGPT what they are. It'll give you a good little summary of them. But it's essentially a way to assign a description to a piece of content that's either going to be like positive and low energy, positive and high energy, negative and low energy, or negative and high energy. What I have found is there's not a copywriter in the world that's good at writing in all four of those tones. I am largely positive and hover between low and high energy. But if you ask me to write something negatively, it gets way too depressing way too quickly. I don't know what that says about me, but it gets dark quick.
It gets dark fast.
So like I've always just kind of stuck to positive writing, but it's helped a ton to feed some of our best winning headlines into, I'm using Claude for everything now. And say like,
Claude.
hey, figure
Love
out what valence and intensity zone this copy falls into, then rewrite options in every other zone.
Yeah.
And it spit out some stuff
what a great approach
that I would never thought to write. And so that's been really eye-opening to see like how powerful that can be, because I've been wrong about if something should be phrased positively or negatively. So that's been like one that has surprised me time and time again, where I'll take a winning headline that, I tried to beat on my own 3 times and failed. And I put it through that series of prompts. It comes out with something new that crushes it. That has surprised me a bunch.
Just I'll riff on that really quickly. I think it's so important because I definitely lean positive as well. Like I'm an optimist to a fault sometimes, very optimistic. I also am a morning person. I can do well late at night as well, but like I've just got a lot of energy. But I'll wake up like just ready to go. And my wife does not. And my kids mostly do not. And so it's like if I wake up and I'm like charged up and I'm, overly optimistic and positive, my kids hate that, right? Like I got to meet them on their level, so to speak. I think the same is true for copy, right? Some people want a different energy level. Mm-hmm. They want a different angle. They're going to connect with you if you're a little less optimistic, right? And so that's where you got to look at it. And just a reminder that not everyone is the same as you, right? And so
100%.
What a brilliant way to use Claude. Love that.
Yeah. And then that has become like how we build funnels too. Like, because, each of those zones are going to hit different people the best. So the first time we test that, we test it to everyone on our website, and we determine like, hey, the majority of people respond well to a positive, low energy piece of copy. And it's like, great, we can set that live for now. But there's still groups of other people that are not going to resonate with that at all. So once we find a couple different ones that work, then we start to create ads in that same tone and voice and send them to their own landing page that speaks the way they want to be spoken to. The morning person energy is probably the better example of it. The example that I have given to my team is that like when you're drunk, a sober person is so annoying. And when you're sober, a drunk person is so annoying.
Dude, what a great example.
They should not mix at all. But I want to sell to all of them. I want to sell to drunk and sober people.
Absolutely.
So it's created more work because we got to make more funnels and ads and LPs. But it's been worth it because we are talking to people the way they want to be spoken to.
Yeah, it's so important, man. And you start to connect all of those things. This is the reason why someone buys. Maybe this is the reason they're willing to admit that they buy. This is the deeper reason why they buy. Now we can speak to both of those.
Yeah.
This is our brand personality, right? This is how we show up on a Friday night and a Monday morning. This is who our customer wants to be. This is who we're writing to. We're writing to the guy in the ripped jeans and the dusty boots. And then it's like, okay, then how are we approaching it? Is it high energy, positive, optimistic? Is it low energy, positive? Like looking at all of those things, man, you really start to create some unlocks, which is just phenomenal. And what about any creative formulas that you use? So I think what we just talked about, man, if people embrace that, going to create some serious unlocks.
Let me add one more thing to that.
Yeah, please.
Before we move on. The reason I stress so hard that personality and brand personalities need to be flexible is because we don't have one why. There's not one reason why people are buying from us. Yeah. And the example that I've used is sometimes I buy whiskey to celebrate because I'm happy. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I buy because I'm sad. Same product, same guy, but depending on how I'm feeling, my motivation for it is different. So that's why I think we need to be able to kind of communicate in different voices and tones because it's going to hit different people in different ways at different times. So don't be so focused on what's our one why? Like what's the thing? Yeah, there's 100 of them. And you need to learn eventually how to speak to all of them really well.
So good. Last couple things here as we kind of wind our time down. First, do you have any kind of creative formulas you use or any rubrics or like, hey, as I'm creating ads, all the things we just talked about, but then it needs to kind of have these elements. Anything like that would be helpful for marketers and brand owners.
One of my favorite quick hacks that anyone can do that I have yet to seen lose at a brand I've tested this on is ask Claude, ask your favorite AI tool, hey, list all of the positive adjectives that someone might use to describe our product. They're going to list, rugged and dependable, or maybe it's luxurious and high end and exclusive. Then you're going to ask it, after you upload all your customer reviews, you're going to ask it, which of these adjectives do our customers most want to describe themselves? And it might say, hey, your customers really want to be known as, something luxurious and high end and premium and, like a top shelf guy. Then you're going to use the formula that I've used for, I think, 11 brands now, from OG to Adapt, to Jack Daniels, Hexclad and Ridge have run similar ones where you say positive adjective plus positive adjective, just like the customers who use it. So at OG, we said our watches were rugged and dependable, just like the men who wear it. Hexclad said our knives are sharp and to the point, just like the chefs who trust it. Jack Daniels said their whiskey is bold and complex, like the guys who drink it. That formula has just crushed over and over and over again. So that's the one, like if you are new to copy, I'd go run through that series of prompts, mess with different versions of adjectives. But that one's been huge for us and it's super simple to do.
Love that. And also, I just so appreciate that you talked about, we don't maybe need to have this maniacal volume focus and obsession of I must launch 100 ads this week or 2,000 ads this month or something. Let's see how many great ads can we produce. And one of the things I'll kind of emphasize, because we see this on the YouTube side a lot as well. There have been a number of brands we've taken from 0 to $1 million a month in spend on YouTube. And most of them, it's with a couple of good creatives, right? Like we're obviously testing quite a few things, but I can think of a few examples where it was like 2 smashing ads that unlocked scale for 6 to 18 months. Yeah. And so I think that should maybe motivate to spend the time to do the things you're talking about here. And then over time, you can lean more into volume to whatever extent makes sense for your brand, but good creative matters and you've got to invest in it.
So to me, it's the sharpening the axe analogy. Yeah. If we both had an hour to cut down a tree and you start hacking at the tree immediately, and I spend the first 45 minutes sharpening the axe, I think I'm going to beat you. And in marketing, that axe sharpening is research and talking to customers and surveying them and understanding why they're actually trying to buy before you go to make the ad.
Well said. Well said, man. Where do you go for inspiration? Like, who do you look at? Are you just looking at other great brands? Are you reading books? You listen to podcasts? Like, where do you go for creative inspiration?
Songwriters.
No way. Okay.
Yeah. Like I consume shockingly little marketing content. I probably should consume some more. But for me, like the people that know how to connect words to people the best are writing music. And Morgan Wallen put out a song last year where he talks about if you're going to be a friend like Skull, that's always there in a pinch. If you're going to love your woman, love her like a Chevy, nice and steady. And if you have something to say, treat them like your Browning rifle and shoot it straight. Those companies should all be using that in their ads constantly.
100%. Lean into that. Yeah.
But I think people that can write number one hit songs are understanding how to connect words to people's feelings better than anyone in marketing. So that's really where I try to get inspiration from. I find when I try to get too much inspiration from competitors or from the industry, our ads start to sound and feel like everyone else's, which just
becomes derivative, right? It's just like it's like that thing, but maybe just slightly different. Yeah. I think that's great. I've also heard, and I've always had a fascination for copy and good marketing, but I've also heard, and this rings true for me, paying attention to comedians, like listening to how do comedians frame things and say things, because generally what's really funny and what works is like I'm looking at an everyday thing, like Jerry Seinfeld, waiting for a table in a Chinese restaurant. I'm flipping that into something hilarious and something that we can relate to. But I love the music thing. I hadn't thought a ton about that. My wife is helping me like country music. I didn't grow up liking country music.
Nice, welcome to it.
But I'm appreciating it. I'm appreciating it more. My daughters all like it, so I'm like, all right, I got to get there. But I've also loved like, even like hip hop artists and stuff, like what they do with language, very clever and very interesting. And so, I hadn't thought about that. I'm a marketing podcast junkie, so I consume this stuff, like I'm running out of time, but I like that. I like that, listening to music.
Yeah, I like comedians too. I'm a big like stand-up fan, but I haven't treated it like that. But I mean, comedians and artists, they make people feel more passionately with their words than any marketer does. No one is reading your ad on Meta and laughing out loud to themselves or nodding their head to it.
Yeah, and really that's just, I understand how to use language and how to shift emotions, and I understand comedic timing and things like that. So all of that does actually play into good copy, it just does. And so that is awesome, man. Dude, this has been absolute gold. Love it. I could talk to you for another couple of hours. I've got like media questions and other things that I need to dive into, but
next time
we'll kind of wrap up.
We'll run
next,
it back.
Exactly. We'll wrap up, make this all creative focus. But yeah, dude, for those that want to find out more about you, tell me about the podcast. Tell me about what you post on X. And then also, huge fan of what you're doing at Adapt. So we all need to get healthier and probably buy some stuff from Adapt.
Yeah, get healthier. That's like half the reason I took the job. It's like just wanted to reprioritize health and quality of life. But yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Nate Lagos. The Tactical and Practical podcast is available anywhere you listen to podcasts. And other than that, would love to just connect with everyone on Twitter, LinkedIn, and hopefully we all keep growing brands and making money.
Let's do it. Nate, thanks so much, man. It's been awesome. Looking forward to round 2.
Sweet. Thanks for having me, Brett. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Would love to hear from you. If this podcast was helpful, and I know that it was, share it with somebody that you think could benefit from it. And with that, until next time, thank you for listening. That'll do it for this week's episode. One final mention: if you feel like you've stalled out with your growth, if you feel like you've missed opportunities, and if you feel like your current team or agency, they just don't have that buyer anymore, or maybe you feel like you've outgrown them, we would love to chat. You may be missing opportunities, and we don't want to miss an opportunity to work with great brands. So if you'd love to scale on YouTube or Google or Meta or Amazon, or email and SMS, or just look like a second set of eyes to look over how you're growing right now, visit us at omgcommerce.com, and we can't wait to help you scale profitably.